Masechet Yoma, Daf Beis Amud Aleph. The beginning of the Masechet deals with preparations that are done to the Kohen Gadol, that preparations that the Kohen Gadol has to make before doing the Avodah on Yom Kippur. The Avodah on Yom Kippur has to be done davka specifically by the Kohen Gadol, and therefore we take certain precautions to ensure that the Kohen Gadol will be able and available to do the Avodah. So, Zok the Mishnah. Shivas Yomim Karim Yom Kippurim, 7 days before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol mi Beisai, they separate the Kohen Gadol from his house, and they sequester him Lalishkas Parhedrin. He's removed from his house, and he stays for those 7 days in an office called Lishkas Parhedrin. It was an office that was in the northeast side of the Azorah, and that's where he was the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur. And we also prepare a substitute Kohen Gadol, Shema Yer by Psul, in case there's a Psul in the Kohen Gadol. So the Kohen Gadol, the Avodah on Yom Kippur has to be done by the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol, in order to do the Avodah, has to be Tahor. We separate him from his house. He doesn't have relations with his wife, and try to ensure that there's no Tumah. And he's separated and sequestered into the Lishkas Parhedrin, so he's isolated from Tumah, isolated from relations, so that he should not become Tumah. We take an additional precaution in that we substitute Kohen Gadol in case there is a psul with the Kohen Gadol. There's a substitute Kohen Gadol that can do the Avodah. The Ritva, however, says is that the substitute Kohen Gadol was not sequestered. He was just warned to keep away from Tumah, but he was not sequestered into a separate office. As far as where there was a special Big Day Kohen Gadol that were made for him, the Tosfos of Rosh discusses that, and the Gemara Sari discusses whether or not he had to be separated for 7 days, whether the subsequent Kohen Gadol also had to be separated for 7 days or not. So that's a basic din that we sequester the Kohen Gadol. We appoint a substitute. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Af isha acheres maskinale." We also prepare a substitute wife, another wife for him. Why is that? Shema tamus ishta. Perhaps his wife would die, and shenemar v'chipar ba'adavad beisai. The Torah says that the Kohen Gadol has to be mechaper for himself and for his household, for his family. And Beisa zu ishtai, that refers to his wife. And therefore, that shows you that the Kohen Gadol has to be married, has to have a wife. And therefore, we have to also the chashash, well, perhaps his wife will die. We also make a substitute for that, and we prepare another wife for him. Said to Rabbi Yehuda, if you're going to be chayshish that she'll die, then there's no end to it. So you can't start being chayshish for this. The more we'll discuss, well, we are chayshish that the Kohen Gadol will die, and we are chayshish from Misa by the Kohen Gadol. Why the difference? Why do we differentiate between him and his wife? So that we'll see in the Gemara. Zok the Gemara. We learned over here in our Mishnah about separating the Kohen Gadol. Well, we learned Tanan Hossam. We learned in the Mishnah. We learned in the Mishnah in Parah that we learned over there Legabe the Kohen Gadol that burns the Parah Duma. It says Shivas Yamim Kohen Srifas Parah, 7 days before the Parah Duma is burned. The Parah Duma was burnt, and they had the ashes, which were then mixed with the water for the mechatas to be matayra tamimes. So it says 7 days before the sreif of the parah, hayu mafrishin kain aserves aparmi besa. Also, they would separate the kain that was going to burn the parah. They would sequester him from his house. Lalishka shal pnei habira, to a different lishka, to a different office, to a different chamber, which was in front of the bira. We'll see what bira means in the Gemara. We'll discuss that. Zafina Mizrach. And this one was in the northeast. Now, as opposed to the Lishkos Parhedrin, it was in the northeast section of the Azorah. This office was close to it, was further east, which it was in the northeast section of the Ezras Yisrael. So it was in the Lishkos Zafina Mizracha, but Lishkos Beisa Evan Haisa Nikras. And this lishka was called the lishka of the Beis Ha'evan, of the stone house. V'lomen the Krishma lishkas Beis Ha'evan. Why was it given that name? Shekol Ma'aseh, because all of the procedures of the Parah Duma to ensure that there will be no tumah, they were done b'klei galolim, b'klei avanim, b'klei adoma. They were made with kela made of dung, stone, or unbaked clay. these types of utensils are not makabel tuma. So, as opposed to kli cheres, which is taking clay and baking it in a kiln and an oven, this was made out of either clay avonim, clay galom or dung, or avonim hollowing out a stone, or adama mud without baking it in an oven to make it into pottery, into kli cheres. These types of kalim is considered to be made out of the natural material and not fabricated kalim. They're not makabel tuma, and therefore we try to ensure that there'll be no tuma for him. My time, why do we use only these type of kalim? Why are we so makbid on this? Why these extra precautions? Because came the tful yoyim kosher b'par. The Chachamim learn out that a person who's a tful yoyim is kosher to do the avodah of the par. He is kosher to do the burning of the par. And tful yoyim, if somebody was tamei, he went to the mikveh, and however, nightfall did not yet pass. It's still the day of the tefillah, and the night has not yet passed. And now, to eat truma or for kachim, he is considered to be tamei. He's not considered to be tohar for truma and for kachim. Nevertheless, Chum say for the paraduma, this type of a person is kosher to do it. So it's kosher, but by this nan, betam hayu a kind of service of para. So this we'll see in a moment. There was a dispute with the tzedukim. The tzedukim said that a tful yoyim is not kosher for the par. Chum said he is. And we had to learn out that he is kosher. So they would intentionally be matama the kayin that was served the par, and then be toivel him, make him in a tful yoyim to show bedavka, to demonstrate that the halach is that he's kosher. So therefore they would be matama the kayin of served the par, to be toivel him, what bilan and make him now he's a tful yoyim to show that a tful yoyim is kosher. Lo heisim believe mishal tzedukim, and that is to negate the view of the tzedukim. That said no, that it's only kosher that way to the para someone had a hair of shemesh. So they bedavka made him into a tful yoyim, and they were matamim. Therefore, since they did that, since they were made this tuma, they made him in a tful yoyim, so there's a chashash that people might be mezalzel in the level of tahara for the paraduma. They see that they're matame him, and they see that a tful yoyim is kosher. So therefore, takinu l'arbana klei galam l'klei avanu klei adama. Therefore, they're masakin specifically these types of kalim that are not makabel tuma. They made a precaution against being makabel tuma. The loyla makabel tuma. These things that are not makabel tuma. Ki hech the loyla zalzel ba. In order that people should not be mezalzel, should not treat lightly and disregard the level of the severity of the paraduma, that should not treat it lightly. They made all these chumras over here. So that's why this lishka was called the base. I was called the base of Avonim. That's why it was called this name. It was given the name of the base ha'evan rather, because the kalim, only kalim that were made out of this type of material, not makabel tuma, that's only the kalim that they use. And my shlit to find in Mizracha, why was this lishka of the base ha'evan dafka in the northeast? As a simon, as a reminder for the kain. Because came the chatas, the Torah calls the paraduma chatas, and the chatas to netzof to find it, and the korban chatas has to be done, has to be shechted in the north, as it's kind of kaddish kadoshim, and has to be shechted in the tzofim. And it also says legabi the paraduma that the blood should be sprinkled towards the pnei oil moed, meaning towards the east of the oil moed, the east side of the oil moed. So therefore, this is a reminder. It's a lishka that's in the north, which is a reminder of the paraduma, which is called a chatas, which is in the north. It's in the east, which is the paraduma, a reminder of the paraduma, where the blood is sprinkled in the east side of the oil moed. Takin l'rabana lishka, it's a fina mizracha. They're masakin this lishka in this location, ki hech del havle akira. So there should be as a reminder for the kain, that he's burning the para, that should have the paraduma in mind, to remember the halachas and the safeguards and the chumras of the paraduma. My bira, so it says that they were mafish, the kain of service of para, Lelishka she'al panei habira, to the lishka that was al panei habira. What is a bira? Amar Rabba Bar Chanan, Amar Chanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Malkim Hayya Bar Abayis Ubir Shmai. There was a certain place that was called Bira, and the Har Abayis, a certain place called Bira. But the Reish Lakish, Amar Reish Lakish says rather, no, Kol HaMikdash Kula Kori Bira. The entire Beis HaMikdash is called a Bira. That's a reference to the Mikdash. And Nemar, the pasuk says, Bira Asher Achi Naisi. Dovid HaMelech davened that to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Shlomo HaMelech should be able to build a Beis HaMikdash into the Bira Asher Achi Naisi, the Bira that I prepared. The Bira meaning that the Mikdash, the Makam HaMikdash, is called the Bira. So we learned in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah, the Kohen Gadol who does the Avodah on Yom Kippur, they have to separate him before doing the Avodah. And the Parah Duma, the Brisa says that we learned in the Mishnah in Parah, we learned the Mishnah in Masechet Parah that they separate the Kohen who say for Parah for 7 days. Minahani Mili. Where do we know this from? What's the makor of this separation? More answers. Amar Yomi Bar Chelkia, Amar Machasya Bar Idi, Amar Yochanan. He says, Amar Kro, it says, Kasher also, Yomi Masechet, Tziva Shem Lasais, Lachapar Alechem. It says, just as you're doing today, this is a reference to, by the Shivas Yemei Maluim, before the Shmini Lamaluim, when they inaugurated the Mishkan, and they inaugurated the Kahanim to do the Avodah. So they were separated for 7 days. They were requested for 7 days. They were sequestered for 7 days, and then there was the Shmini Lamiluim when they did the Avodah. And the pasuk says that Kasher also b'yom hazeh, just like you did on this day. Tziv Hashem la'asais l'chaper alechem. So you should do in the future to be mechaper, meaning just like you did over here, that the Bnei Aaron were separated, they were sequestered for 7 days, and then they did the Avodah. In the future, you're also will have a separation for 7 days before doing the Avodah. So which future event is it referring to? So the pasuk says, Amar Kro Kasher also b'yom hazeh tziva Hashem la'asais l'chaper alechem. Just like you're doing today, Tziv Hashem lasais to do, lasais elamasa para. The lasais is referring to the paraduma, so you need a separation 7 days before the burning of the paraduma. And lechaper, it says lasais, lechaper aleichem, lechaper elamaisa yom kippurim, as the maisa yom kippurim, which comes lechaporim. We understand why you can't say that the pasuk is saying and referring only to the paraduma, and that the whole pasuk is referring to paraduma. That we understand because of chabriksi, because it says in the pasuk l'chaper, and paralavas kapari. The paraduma doesn't come for a kapara. It doesn't come for a kapara. It's through the paraduma you have tahara. You effect the tahara, but it doesn't come to be mechaper. So we can't say that the whole pasuk is referring to paraduma. But perhaps we should say that the entire pasuk means both limudim are for Yom Kippur, and you have nothing extra to teach you paraduma. For says, well, why would I say that I need both for Yom Kippur? If I have two limudim over here, that I have lasais and l'chapir, why would I say both for Yom Kippur? What's the Gemara's kasha? Taisus answers, because I would have said without both of them, I would have said that it's not referring to specifically Yom Kippur. I would think l'chapir is referring to korbanos, and I would think that lasais is referring to paraduma. That's why. So it says, but it says both of them. So that's why it says both of them to teach you dafka, perhaps dafka Yom Kippur, where Yom Kippur it says both. But by Yom Kippur it says both, that it says that Siva and Lasais, so that it's L'chaper and Lasais rather. So that's why it says Dafka, I would think that I need both of them for Yom Kippur. So for the Gemara, then how in fact do I know that that's not the case, and how do I know in fact that it's referring also to Paraduma? The Gemara says, Yola Tziva Tziva. Now, we have a Gzer Shav Tziva. The pasuk says over here, Kasher Tziva. Kasher Asa B'yom Hazeh So kasher osava Yomi Masechet tziva shem lasos, and we have exer shova for a yom for paraduma of tziva. Ksiv hachat tziva shem lasos. Uksiv also it says by paraduma, so it's chut asatayra asher tziva Hashem lemor. So we have this exer shova of tziva. Therefore, we apply that the tziva to teach us on there for paraduma, and therefore we learn out that para is exer shova is paraduma, malahalan para, afkan para, umakan prisha, aflahalan prisha, and therefore we learn out that there's prisha, there's a sequestering in both cases, and therefore the chaper is for Maaseh Yom Kippurim, and we learn out over here so therefore the Maaseh Levitayit is learning is lechaper, and we learn out lasois lechaper and lasois take for Yom Kippur. That's teaching me Yom Kippur and only Yom Kippur, and the tziva would be teaching me paraduma. So we learn out sequestering both by paraduma and by Yom Kippur.